All right. Well, let's just jump into it.
Shall I lead?
No, you're not the host here, huh? This is a solo show.
Okay, go on.
You're listening to Date Smart with Taylor Wade. 20 years ago, I co-founded Ambiance Matchmaking, an exclusive matchmaking agency that has helped over 100,000 singles master their dating lives. In this podcast, I share the same tactics and techniques with you. We'll dive into the basics of human attraction and chemistry, what makes a compatible partnership, does the one exist, plus much, much more. We'll do it all with the help of matchmaker Leslie Wardman, who started matchmaking in the 1990s. Mastering your dating life is easier than you think. It's just a matter of science and a little know-how. So grab your coffee, follow along, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's talk about the first date. You just planned your very first rendezvous with someone new. You don't know too many details, first name, job, hobbies, maybe a few photos, but you have a feeling it's gonna be good. Then you notice a fluttery feeling in your stomach and catch yourself repeating scenarios in your head. Yep, those are called nerves. Most people experience a type of low-grade anxiety before dates. You know the type just lurking beneath the surface. It's not sharp enough to poke through, but it's not so subtle you can ignore it. Yeah, that kind. I feel like the reason we experience nerves before our dates is because we fear the unknown. When we can't predict an outcome with certainty, it becomes a risk. For example, when we can't predict with certainty that our date will like us, it becomes a risk to our ego. But fears are not based on reality. Fear of the unknown is based on a pile of self-limiting beliefs based on what we think may happen. These self-limiting beliefs leak out in different ways. We fear our dates won't find us interesting, attractive, funny, or whatever insecurity we may have. As Ambiance Matchmaking's founder, Leslie Wardman, always says,
I really think insecurity is like the root of all evil when it comes to relationships and dating especially.
However, we can dissolve our insecurities and fears so that we can stop worrying and start connecting with our dates on a whole new level. As Nelson Mandela once said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. In order to conquer our fear of the unknown, we don't just ignore it, we embrace it. We embrace the unknown because it brings change, and that's a good thing. The one thing that is constant in our dating lives is change. We're constantly changing and evolving by meeting new people, hearing their ideas and stories, and trying to make sense of why we did or didn't click with someone. And that's a beautiful thing. So let's stop trying to predict the outcome of our dates, stop worrying about what people think of us, and embrace change. At that point, we can start focusing on connecting with the person sitting in front of us. And that's exactly what we're talking about today, connecting with our dates on a whole new level. I'm doing it with the help of my colleague, Leslie Wardman. Our company, Ambiance Matchmaking, has been matchmaking for over 2 decades with as many as 20 matches going out every week. That means we've orchestrated around 20,000 dates in total. And after each date, we receive feedback from every client. As you can imagine, we have a lot of information about what people find attractive and not so attractive on a first date. Today, we're sharing those details with you. We're starting with the top 3 reasons a date will find us attractive and how we can implement these tips into our own dating lives. All right, let's call Leslie and see what she says.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
All right, well, let's just jump into it.
Shall I lead?
No, you're not the host here, huh? This is a solo show.
Okay, go on.
So, what are the top 3 reasons someone will like their date?
I probably would start with a smile. I think a smile is an incredible way to express, the fact that you're A, comfortable in your skin, B, going to be an easy person to be around for that reason, and C, happy with what you see. So a smile is, I can't begin to think of something that's more powerful and positive as a first impression, for sure. And those are very important.
Yeah. And whether we realize it or not, I feel like we're always portraying certain qualities through nonverbal action all the time, right? Isn't it like 90% of communication is nonverbal?
Yeah, it boils down to that old saying, talk is cheap, I mean, seriously, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so that's not only the smile, right? So that would be with body posture, gestures, tone of voice. I mean, those are all signals that I feel like our dates pick up on naturally. And we might not be aware of that, but it's a good thing to be aware of.
Very much so. Let's not even forget eye contact. Talk about powerful as well. But if somebody's smiling when you're walking up to the table or vice versa, I think it's probably a pretty good indicator that there's going to be little or no awkwardness and conversation's going to flow. So go with a smile.
I love it. Okay, what's the second reason someone will like their date?
Vibe, which means, like having the same energy level. Like two people, being comfortable in your own skin is like, I can't say that enough, which comes by getting to know yourself. But having good eye contact, that would indicate that you're having a good flow of energy. And if somebody doesn't have the ability to have that, might be check please time, because it shows that they're uncomfortable and maybe not having the ability to be honest, and those are incredible red flags. So just to be comfortable and getting to hear somebody share a story about their life, and then vice versa, maybe your story bounces off of theirs, but laughs in between. Those are such good signs of a good date.
Yeah, energy is everything. I'm reading a book right now by Joe Dispenza called Becoming Supernatural. And he says, our emotions are energy in motion. And I love this so much. And what it means is when someone experiencing a strong emotion walks into a room, their energy is often very palpable, right? So that's why it's so important for us to get into a great frame of mind before our date, because our emotions are literally radiating off of us. And when we put off better energy, we get a more positive response from our date in return. And getting into a great frame of mind before a date could look like a lot of different things. It could look like listening to a good podcast or reading a good book or calling a good friend, just doing whatever you enjoy doing so that you can get into a great frame of mind before your date. Okay, so what's the third reason someone will like their date?
I would say number 3 is definitely storytelling. I can't emphasize enough about what a lost art this is and how wonderful it is to be able to spend the evening with an interesting person, with a nice flow and exchange of stories. I just don't think there are, better things in this life, hardly. So yeah, definitely exchange of stories with an interesting person. And just even saying that and picturing beautiful outdoor cafe with, stars, glass of wine. I mean, that's good life. That is definitely good times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Storytelling is such a great way to display your personality and really give insight into your life. And it eliminates the somewhat boring and interrogative style of just asking a slew of questions, right? But as you said, storytelling is an art, and it involves having life experience and being a somewhat interesting person.
It's important to be interesting. I mean, you don't want to be sitting there on a date like a bump on a log and not having anything to talk to. You better sure the hell get some experience in this life, or, you're missing out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was Mark Manson and Tim Ferriss both talk a lot about self-diversification and leading an interesting life. But I think it was an article by Mark Manson that said, when you have money, it's always smart to diversify your investments. And that way, if one of them goes south, you don't lose everything. And it's also smart to diversify your identity. So invest your self-esteem and what you care about into a variety of different areas, whether it be your career or relationships or philanthropy or sports or, whatever it is, so that when one of them goes south, you're not just completely emotionally torn apart. And I love that because, it makes a lot of sense. So many of us want to just focus and specialize in one field when in reality, it's such a much more enriched and beautiful life if we can invest in a variety of different areas. And it makes us a more interesting person. And it's going to allow us to have so much more to talk about on our dates. All right, let's jump into the top 3 reasons someone will not like their date.
The number one reason someone will not like their date is if they talk too much.
I mean, if you're going to sit down, first of all, you get to the table, besides the fact that your chair may not have been pulled out and you didn't get greeted with a smile, and they jump into starting to just ramble on about themselves. And that could be a huge buzzkill, especially if all they can talk about is work. I heard that recently, and it was just sounding like a nightmare. The person was taking like business calls during their video, conference. And they thought it was a positive reflection on themselves. And it was really sad because
I have an important job. Like, I got to take this. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm a banker and I got all these important things going on. Yeah, no. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. Nonstop talk about work is not really pleasant because it just indicates to the person that's sitting across the table from you that you aren't really having a life balance, a work-life balance. And yes, work's important. We get it. But have stuff going on outside of work because it doesn't really indicate who you are in the big picture.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. Okay, what's the second reason someone will not like their date?
Being present. I mean, a lot of people, they hear about being present and they're so not present, it just flies over their head sort of, and I catch myself all the time, and it is a practice. Was I just present when I was around this person, or did I have too much bouncing around inside my mind and, thinking about what I had to do to really enjoy the company, when they were with you? And to be able to do that, really understand what being present means. Being present means that you aren't preoccupied. Being present means that you don't have, a million things going on in your head about that day or yesterday or tomorrow or anything except for that moment. And being able to invest in that, in that time that you're with that person. And if you don't, it's just going to be a waste. It's going to be a waste of time. And this goes for every day of your life, actually. It'll just be a waste if you're not in the present moment. So being able to be present and listen, really listen. Don't be looking around the room and, at your watch or a phone or anything, please. Give the courtesy and respect, even if you're not falling in love.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even if you're not going to fall in love with the person, you can always learn something new from someone. So use it as an opportunity to practice being present and learn something new about the person, even if it's not going to turn into a romantic connection. Okay, so what's the third reason someone will not like their date?
Don't be inconsiderate when you're on a match. When your match arrives, do not be on your phone. Don't be texting. Don't be talking, don't be scrolling. Have your phone away and have it off. And when your match gets there, if you're the guy, be gentlemanly. Hold the chair out. That just is a nice reflection of you being a gentleman. And as you're sitting and exchanging stories, don't be looking around the room. That is inconsiderate. Be nice and considerate to the wait staff, without being too nice. Don't flirt. Don't compliment her on her dress and ask her where she got it or anything stupid like that. That is inconsiderate to your date. Pick up the check. It's the first date. Typically, they aren't at the Ritz or anywhere that's going to break the bank. So it's a really nice old school chivalry way to end a date. My all-time biggest pet peeve of inconsideration is a guy not walking a girl to her car, hailing her a cab, or waiting with her while her Uber gets there. That's really not that difficult to take a few minutes before you take off to make sure all that is good. So those are the things you don't want to do.
I think we discussed this, but I had a client ask me about my thoughts on this because he was talking about the liberal feminist movement and how it's influenced dating and making men second guess whether they should do things that are normally seen as chivalrous. And our client was saying, he's the type of person that likes to open up doors and pay for dinners and all of that. And he was just saying that some of his dates have hated that. And so I think some men are struggling with striking the right balance of being chivalrous and then also respecting a woman's independence and empowerment and all of that. And in my perspective, to me, it's just in its most simple form, being chivalrous is really just doing something nice for your date. It shows you're interested in her and you're confident enough to show it. And it's a huge compliment. A man isn't opening your door or paying for your dinner because he thinks that you can't. It's just simply a nice gesture.
Yeah, it definitely is. We're at such an awkward phase, when it comes to that, because yes, women are, so many women are wanting to, liberate themselves on many levels. But if it translates over into manners or things that we've been, raised with, or that can show that you're interested and, have been taught manners growing up and all that kind of stuff, it's huge. But I'll tell you what the big one is. Who's going to pick up the check? It's just so awkward, and so many women, here's what'll get a guy that kind of bugs him a little bit from what I understand. If a woman just sits back and assumes he's going to pick it up, it's her birthright to get fed by this person, or something. A guy in the back of his mind, I think typically will want to pick up the check, and will, 90% of the time at least, but it's not well received if the woman acts like, that's what he's, no matter what, it's kind of nice if a girl maybe says, I don't know, indicates some, at least appreciation, thank you so much. But then again, there's a flip side to that coin. Some girls don't want to have a guy pay for the check because then she may not want to have to ooze with, appreciation and thank yous or anything like that. That's an area topic that could probably be talked about for an hour, just all the little nuances of that, that again should flow, just naturally. Let's say the waitress brings the check or the waiter, and it's sitting there in the middle of the table, awkward moment, and you never know. Sometimes, the waiter usually puts it down in front of the guy, probably 90% of the time anyway, right? Exchange. But so then he, opens it up and, it's your first date and stuff. I would offer to pay half. I just think, it is 2020. You don't have to. The guy can say no. If he accepts, it might be a moment, depending on the, everybody's different. But just be aware and just don't assume anything. Even though it is, 2020 and, things have changed quite a bit. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I would always offer to pay because like what you just said, I never wanted to assume. Mm-hmm. But even though it is 2020, I feel like I am a little bit old-fashioned when it comes to that. And I really liked the gesture of a guy picking up the check, at least on the first date. And so, yeah, if he was like, no, I got this, I would be like, okay, thank you so much. And if not, that was a very big for me.
Well, you know why? It's no reflection necessarily on anybody's, character or lack thereof. It's something that we've had happen, that's what we've been raised with. Our parents have been raised with before us and their parents. I mean, it's in our, it's just indoctrinated in us. And whether that's good or bad, it's neither or. It's just, been, what is reflection of where we've come from, and it may not, persist over the next, millennium. I don't know, but it is in there somewhere. And, if everybody just sees it for what it is, then fine. no big deal, and don't take offense to anything, but just everything that you just said is spot on. It's great if a guy, offers. I just remember the first time I had to pay for a guy's meal. It wasn't even out. It was a takeout place.
Wait, take us back. Set the scene. What year are we in?
No, it's been years and years, but I just remember him asking me if we were gonna go somewhere like golfing or something, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind going by Takey Outy or whatever and picking up some, whatever the thing that he wanted off the menu?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then when we hung up, I was like, I have to buy a meal for a guy. I went to the place and I ordered it, and then I just remember it took me
a hot dog, asshole.
It took me 10 minutes to grab the $10, I think, out of my pocket. It was just so excruciating for me, just because, I was raised so old school and stuff. And and here's the way he was raised. He was the only boy. He was raised, I think, with 6 other, women in his family. And they were all like, one was a judge, and, they were all highly affluent. And to him, it just didn't mean anything.
It always goes back to the childhood, how you were raised. It always goes back to it.
No doubt about it.
This is episode 3 of Date Smart, Tactics and Techniques for Mastering Your Dating Life. This podcast was hosted by me, Taylor Wade. This episode includes guest Leslie Wardman, CEO and matchmaker of Ambiance Matchmaking. This podcast is brought to you by Ambiance Matchmaking, an exclusive matchmaking agency for selective singles. Complete an application by clicking the link in the episode show notes or going to ambiancematchmaking.com/apply. You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. Until next time.